record that we did for the regular, they wanted a real nice big kind of open sound, and I had a front room that wasn't furnished yet, and I told the guys, I was like, hey, I'm thinking of, let's check the drums upstairs in this front room. It's like 22-foot vaulted ceiling, big. I think it's almost like a 40-foot by probably 30-foot, length and wide, and 22 feet high. So huge room. Sounds amazing.
Wow.
And I actually ended up bringing panels from my live room downstairs, and I brought them upstairs, and I kind of paneled some problem spots in the room and fixed it, and just got this incredible sound. And we ran like 4 room mics on the drum set, and there was one. I have a 2-story house, so I put a U87 on the top of the stairs, and it's kind of like the top of my stairs are as high as, the ceiling goes. So it almost created this I had a hallway too. So it almost created this little chamber effect. So I used that as a lot of like room ambiance. And I think I just crushed the hell out of it with some compression and just made it sound super cool and big. So use that as a room mic. I have a stereo ribbon condenser that we used, that I put like super high up in the room. I think it was probably like 10, 15 feet in the air above the drum set and about 15 feet in front of the kick drum. And then I had a Telefunken U47 that I actually got the demo for that entire record. So like the vocals, the banjo, acoustic guitars, all of that stuff is done with a real Telefunken U47. The Sweetwater.
Oh man,
Sweetwater sent me one, and I was super pumped off that.
That's a yummy mic. I've tried it out at AES.
Oh yeah. It's amazing. But so we tracked all the drums up there. Yeah, it sounded great. Pat, their drummer, he's such a great pocket player. Doesn't overplay for the track, and just sounded amazing. And yeah, we just kept it going. It was funny. We were, for like a week, my whole entire front room was just a mess. Like, had the snake running up there, had foam panels, had I have a drum floor that I have RLX 2x4s underneath, so no sound transmission goes through the floor. And like, I brought that up, and it was a long, grueling process, but man, it sounded amazing. And
wow,
yeah. So just,
where the guitars were tracked afterwards, like everything else was like, it was kind of done in like in stages, as you mentioned earlier.
Yep, yeah. So we did the drums first up there, broke the drums down, did all the acoustic guitars up there. There's actually
everything was done up there.
Yep, yeah. There's no electric guitars on there. There's a steel guitar player, but as far as like, there's no electric guitars. The only thing that really wasn't done up there was bass guitar, because that was done down here in the control room, direct in. But cello, everything else was done up there in that room. And certain bands that have that certain sound, we'll track up there and give it that nice big sound. But I'm gonna be completely honest, it's a total pain bringing everything up there, and unfortunately now the room is more furnished. I have a dining room table up there now, and some chairs and stuff like that, so it's
even more inconvenient.
Yeah, so we'll have to move some stuff around. But there's a record I'm doing this summer that I think I'm gonna go ahead and repanel the upstairs and move some stuff around and track drums up there again and stuff like that. So,
nice.
But
so cool. Like, you just book out times and do full records.
Yeah, it's that's ideally how I love to do it. Is I like to work with one band at a time, and we'll track depending on how many songs they do. If a band's doing three to five songs at a time, you're looking at a week's worth of tracking between drums, guitars, and vocals and stuff like that. And then right after we're done tracking, I go right into mixing. And there was a time quite a few years ago where I would literally come downstairs and I would have my sheet and I'd be like, okay, like band A needs mix revisions to their song. Band B, I need to do a bounce for their vocalist so he can practice his vocals to the song. Band C, I need to do drum edits for. Band D needs that. Man, I just kept getting lost. There's just so much that needed to get done. So I finally told bands, I was just like, if you're a band that doesn't have everything together, I just say, call me when you're ready. Like, I've worked with some bands where we're like, oh, well, we'll track drums, we'll track guitars, and then once our vocalist is done writing vocals, we'll hit you up. And I'm just like, nah, I don't track that way. Like,
wow,
the whole song's got to be
I love it.
somewhat ready, because and I don't think bands realize it, but it's more for them, because I don't sit down and open a mix 2 months later and be like, wasn't there some crazy vocal effect I was supposed to do for the bridge? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Let me call him. And it's just like,
Right.
hey, I don't remember this part because we worked on this track 2 months ago and now you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to like, oh yeah, we just finished tracking it. I'm fresh with it. I know exactly what we're going for and stuff like that.
Man, I love this. I feel like this is a great takeaway for me and for the audience. It's like, just like, do it while the fire's hot.
Yeah.
Like get it in.
Yep.
Like I'm like working on this project with one artist that it's almost 2 years working on this.
Yep.
It's not even a record, just a song. It's like, dude, let's finish this.
Yep.
If we had finished it like the first week or something. Like, imagine that. Like when you're inspired. Like, because the more it drags on, the less you want to do it.
Yep.
You want to do it while you're inspired and you still love the music.
Yeah, and I've had bands. I've experienced that so much in my, I guess, younger career. I don't want to say younger career. I've only been doing this for
earlier in your career.
Earlier in my career. It's just, it's a headache, and it's more musical. The songs come out better, and I always tell bands, like, unless this is your last release, your last hurrah, you're never gonna like be a band again after that. Like, yeah, let's take some time on it, but like, if you're going to do this EP and then plan on being back here again in 3, 4, 5 months again with a single or another EP, it's just like, let's get it out and get it going. Like, make sure it's right.
That's a big issue with artists, is they're too precious. They think every song is their baby. And it's like, no, man, you got to put it out, and then eventually one of them is going to be great. It's you can't expect a home run for, or you can't just expect every single one to be perfect.
Yeah,
no, the greatest thing ever.
Absolutely. And Alan Dowshez was, he always told me, he was just like, cool, all right, you can move on. Or I'd always tell him, be like, oh, I wish I had this piece of gear that I just got for this last project. He's like, well, you didn't, so make your next one better. And
totally.
So I listened to mixes that, I had Focal Twin 6s before I had the ATCs, and I'm just
man, I'd be happy with Focal Twins.
Hey, those are great speakers too, but
yeah, dude,
I wanted a 3-way speaker, and
I hear that
the mid-range dome is just, it's opened up my mixes so much more, but
no doubt about
there's
that.
a couple records where I'm just like, man, if I had the ATCs for that would have been sick, or but it's just like, you're gonna keep making music, so just keep progressing and keep getting better and keep making more music. So
don't sweat the details, just keep at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's another that's a great takeaway as well for the audience. Was there anything else I wanted to ask you about the Saw segment before we move on? I don't know. I don't think I have any questions. It's just like really well done, recorded. Sounds great. It's a moving song also. Yeah,
I mean, the super talented band, Oscar, he's the vocalist and kind of the main singer-songwriter of that band. And Spencer, that whole band is just so talented, but Spencer is one of the best keyboard players I've ever tracked. And
I love the piano.
Yeah.
The piano sounded great. It sat in the mix perfectly. It was like,
Yep, he's amazing. Oscar, I did a track with him where this band actually, they recorded at another studio, and I found them through a mutual friend, and I met them at a New Year's Eve party, and my friend was always like, you should meet my buddy, he records music, and he was always like, we're good, and I ended up meeting him, and I just said, hey man, like, here's a link to, here's my card, here's a link to some of my stuff, and he's like, I know you're in a band, and I heard them, and I was like, they're super talented, and he ended up calling me like 2-3 days later, and he was like, hey man, it's Oscar, and I was like, oh yeah, what's up, man? He was like, your stuff sounds really good. And and I was just like, oh, like, thanks, man. And I was like, well, do you want to come tour the studio? And he's like, yeah. He's like, but we just finished this one record. Like, we literally just got the master back like 2-3 days ago. He's like, and I kind of want to hear what it sounds like if you do it. And
whoa.
So they sent me, I ended up getting the files and I remixed it. And he was just like, man, this sounds incredible. Like, we love it. And I was like, as I got the track, I was just like, there's some distortion happening in the vocal. I was like, I don't know if that was, saturation's cool, but I was like, that sounds unintentional. And so we ended up retracking the vocal here at my studio, and my main vocal mic is my U87 that I use. And we use that for him, and it sounded great. And the whole reason why I'm telling this story is, when I did that record for them in like January, and then I mixed it. And then they came in March to do those other 3 songs. And that's when I was like, I want to get a U47 or a 251 style microphone. And I got the U47 on demo specifically for Oscar because of his tone of voice. And the 47 is just a smoother sounding microphone.
Sure.
And Oscar has, he could be aggressive on the top end sometimes. And that 47.
Yeah, he's got a bright voice.
That handled him so well. And honestly, like being a mixing engineer, it's just like everyone, you hear a record and you're just like, oh, like the band's great, the mix was great, but it's just like the mastering engineers, they don't get enough credit, especially when they're good. So a big part of my sounds and why I think a lot of my records work the way they do is just the mastering engineers that I work with. It's the Ted Jensens, the Alan Dauchez's, the Randy Mueller mastered that one, and he masters Gaga, Taylor Swift, and Bieber, and all of those guys. So they definitely help bring that all the records together. And Chris Gehringer masters a lot of my pop stuff, and he does all the Dua Lipa, the Lizzo, and all of those huge records.
Yeah,
so
sick. Like
it's definitely worth it. So I love it.
Do you have to convince the bands to pay for these mastering engineers, or do you like just include it in your price?
So it's definitely there. It's a external payment that they pay, and that's the other thing too is when I have that first meeting with the band, and I go, hey, what's the budget for this record? Obviously we know how much it costs to do a record here, but what's the overall budget in the end? And most of the time, I think I mastered I really don't master records that often. I think I mastered 3 records last year, and it was simply because the band
there was no budget.
The band didn't have the budget to send it to them. And I work with different mastering engineers at different tier prices and stuff like that when it comes down to budget. But I always tell bands just hey, if it's not a budget issue, we're going to Ted Jensen. Or we're going to Chris Gehringer. Those guys they're the top of their craft right now in the world, and they don't ruin your mix. It comes back right. And Ted Jensen, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's practically wrote the book on industry standard of what mastering is today.
Yeah, so. I know about Ted Jensen. Yeah. I think somebody came on my podcast with a Zoom background. It was this is Ted Jensen's room, but it's not really.
Oh, yeah. Have you done anything with the Sterling guys?
No.
Okay,
yet.
I didn't know if it was.
Maybe you could give me an intro.
Maybe, yeah. There's.
I'd love to talk to somebody over there.
I bet we could probably get Adam Grover. He's another guy that I work with. He just got a Grammy nomination for a record too, so that was his first one. So I texted him and I was like, "Are you going to raise your prices because you're big time now?" So, but
I was going to ask you if you always. I was curious if you did mastering yourself because you offer it as a service on your website. But good to know that you're sending out.
That's mainly there, honestly, for a band getting. I don't want a band to get deterred away and be like, "Oh, he doesn't do mastering. We're going to go somewhere else." Because I do. I do it, for the bands.
But it's about communicating what the goals are and how we can get it there.
Yeah, and to me, it's just if you're mixing it, why master it? You're gonna I would.
Oh, I'm with you on
I would
that,
mix
man.
it the way it was supposed to be mastered if I wanted it to sound that way.